Is working mom no longer a thing? Is that term obsolete now?
It is not my place to make sure you're comfortable with the terms I choose to use for myself. You aren't
Right,
getting a paycheck.
right.
What you're getting is a supreme result in the child you produce.
There's the argument, brace yourself. There is the argument that working moms have it easier.
Because you don't stop being a mom because you're at work. And it's the unpopular opinion, right? But it's
It
not.
sure is. It sure is.
But at the end of the day, to me, it wasn't work because this is my child and I'm investing.
What do you say for those moms who may be listening to you and saying, wow, I don't really feel that way. I don't have that type of connection with motherhood. Is the term working mom becoming obsolete? Does it devalue the role of the stay-at-home mom, or are we just being way too sensitive? We address these controversial questions and so much more with our special guest in this head-on, no-holds-bar conversation. We thank you for watching, and don't forget to do what? Click subscribe. Always a pleasure to bring back Nicole Hemsath to our virtual couch once again for this very important topic, because we got a lot of opinions on these social and these medias. And one of the topic that has come up recently is, should we get rid of the term working mom? Is that term obsolete now? Is working mom no longer a thing? Are we just being insensitive to our stay-at-home moms? Are we really making distinctions between motherhood as a career and motherhood as a stay-at-home mom? Is that unfair? Well, these are the questions we're going to answer today. And we're so happy to have Nicole Hemsath back with us, who's been on both sides. So she has a lot to say today. And as CEO of the Brain Zone, we brought the head brain to the couch today. Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome, Nicole. Listen, Nicole, when I first heard this controversy, I was like, well, they may have a point, because a lot of people I remember there was a survey that came out that said, and I will tag the source of the survey, but the survey said that moms who work at home or stay-at-home moms work the equivalent of 2.5 jobs. And I was like, okay, I could dig that. It's a lot of hard work. But should we really get rid of the term working moms?
And stop calling motherhood a job. Oh, it's such a hard. No. No. Being a brain surgeon is a hard job. Okay? This is a state of being. This is a state of being that is indescribable. There's no words for it. There's no words. I can't go to HR about these kids. There's no manager I can report them to. You could quit a job. Okay? Don't get me started about how I'm working for free. That's not a job, okay? It's a duty. But a job, stop it. Because you're downplaying this. You're downplaying it, and it's problematic, and y'all need to stop. Let me tell y'all something. Because it's such a common thing, it's such a normal thing, reproduction, right? Y'all don't understand how difficult and how psychotic being a mother, especially a mom of multiples, but a mom at all. Y'all think that this mess is normal. It's not. And anybody who's listening to me right now, if you're sitting here, oh, she's tripping. Oh, she's going through it. She's tripping. She need to go. You don't have children. Name one mother who hasn't had a trauma behind being somebody's mom. I don't care how rich you are. I don't care how many nannies you have. I don't care how much help you have. This mess is crazy. It's crazy. Something needs to be done, because there's no way, right? There's no way that we are supposed to turn out a little crazy behind reproducing. I rebuke it. I don't believe it. I don't believe it. Because as a society, right? Progress, growth. The more we're reproducing, the more crazy. No, but it's like, you're not gonna come out of motherhood unscathed. And that's the problem. I don't know if we have to have a meeting. I don't know. I'll hop on Zoom immediately. Let's figure this out. Something needs to be done about this, because
Are we shading stay-at-home moms?
Well, you know what? I think it's kind of crazy, because I feel like we shouldn't get rid of the term, because the bottom line is there are working mothers. right? So if you call it a rose by any other name, right? It's a rose the same, right? So whatever you choose to call it, if there are mothers who work, they are ultimately working moms, right? But it's up to anyone else who would feel shaded or left behind to find their own resolve, right? It is not
Mm-hmm.
my place to make sure you're comfortable with the terms I choose to use for myself, right? If you're
Mm-hmm.
comfortable in whatever you're doing, then that should suffice for you, right? But we want everybody else to be responsible these days. And maybe that comes from mothers not being at home raising their kids, right? I don't know, right? Instilling certain things in their children. But what you think of me or what you use for a term has literally no bearing on how I view me or see me or how I'm going to do my job, be it at a job or be it stay at home and take care of my family.
Are we underestimating the workload of a stay-at-home mom? Because I remember, I think it was Yahoo Finance that did this whole breakdown as to what the payment would be if we actually paid moms who are stay-at-home moms. And I think the salary was ranging from like depending on the source you use, 160,000 per year to 180 something thousand per year. So the equivalent of very heavy jobs, like that could be the income of some CEOs out there. So are we really underestimating what stay-at-home moms do?
I think it's just like any other job, right? Because you can have two CEOs and they don't do the exact same thing. They don't do them just as well as one another, right? They don't, this company, you may be a CEO and your company brings in $200,000 a year. And this company, you're a CEO and your company brings in $200 million a year. Those CEOs are doing vastly different things, right? So I
Mm-hmm.
think it's tricky because then we have to assume that every stay at home mom is doing it the same way to the same degree at the same time for the same amount of children. And so
Mm-hmm.
to me, that's just right. How do you do that? Because what about the mom who is at home with her kids, but she's popping bonbons and
Right.
the child is sitting in front of a TV all day and not
Well, that's
necessarily
true.
bathing every day? And then what about the mom who's making homemade jelly and homemade butter and homemade bread and her kid doesn't watch TV and is not on the iPad, right? Those, does that
Yeah.
is that
Yeah.
woman still worth the 168 popping
Yeah.
bonbons? You know,
Mm-hmm.
so I think we have to put everything in its perspective and we have to say,
Mm-hmm.
why does somebody else need to validate or say what it would be worth? You aren't
Right.
getting a paycheck. Right?
Right.
What you're getting is a supreme result in the child you produce.
Should we call it work though? Is stay-at-home mom are they doing work?
Well, you're
Is that
doing work.
categorized as work?
I feel like you're doing work, right? Because I've been there, right? I stayed at home. I homeschooled my daughter, so I created all of her curriculum. I made all of her lunches, right? I developed her PE program. I brought in substitute teachers. I did all these things for her so she could have a certain experience. But at the end of the day, to me, it wasn't work because this is my child and I'm investing. I am,
Mm.
I chose to have a child. I chose to stay home with her. And so I invested my time in my child. I don't think my child is work. Work is work. And I love my job, right? I love being a CEO. I love everything that I do, but my child to me is not work.
Mm.
This is love. This is a part of me and I'm giving to the person I've created. So to me,
Mm-hmm.
it's not, and it's the unpopular opinion, right? But it's
It
not.
sure is. It sure is. Because there's some people that say, for example, that working moms, there's the argument, brace yourself. There is the argument that working moms have it easier. Okay. And I'm gonna share with you why they say that. They say that because the argument is when you are a stay-at-home mom that you're constantly, like you said, there are variations, but I would say when we think about a stay-at-home mom, for most of us, we're thinking about that person that is doing the laundry, that is maybe cleaning the home, that is making sure, depending how old the child is, if they're in activities,
Yeah.
that is participating in PTA and things like that. That they don't really get a break, right? Because when dad or partner comes home, they are still going, they don't get that break because the working parent comes home and now wants to play with the child or the children, wants to catch up with what happens for the day. But that parent that is the stay-at-home parent, and in this case, we're talking about moms, um, has to continue until that child goes to bed and then start all over again. So, what about that argument that the working mom comes home and in theory has a break from life at home, by working, which some people say is easier task than the work of a mom of maybe a mom of multiples.
And I mean, I see the point, right? I see the point, and I don't want to be Satan's sidekick on this one, but I feel like, right? I feel like the argument could be made though. What happens when you're at work and the school calls you at work, and now you have to deal with what's going on in the school? You also have to deal with what's going on in work, right? So we can all qualify how heavy or how hard, because right, your child is always with you. No one's gonna call you. You don't have to explain to anyone. You don't have to find coverage. You don't have to stay late. You don't have to make up hours, right? All of those things, right? Because you don't stop being a mom because you're at work. Right? You're still that child's mother. You're still responsible. I've left work on more than one occasion because my child needed me, or because she had a track meet, or because she was speaking, right? She was doing, so you don't stop being a mom because you work. So dare I say, it to think that because I'm going to go into this building and do this task for these 10 hours or 8 hours or whatever it is, in these hours I'm not a mom. I might not be there minute by minute, but you also might not be there minute by minute because your child takes naps. Your child lies down, right? You're right. So all of those things. So I think it's tricky when you get in a tit for tat. I think we have to move into a space that says whatever parenting looks like for you, if it works for your household, it's okay.
Oh, yeah.
And if you're producing a good human, it's okay, right? Because I have been, and I just don't see it as work, even though from before, my husband used to have to leave for work at 4 a.m. So guess who was up at 3 o'clock in the morning, making his breakfast, making his lunch, packing his things, kissing him goodbye, then getting up and then doing work for my dog, right? So I mean,
now they do say the moms, to your point, they do say the moms are more likely to have that dual role when they're career moms, that they're still managing the household when there's a stay-at-home dad, compared to the opposite scenario where it's dad at work. Like usually mom handles everything at home, and a lot of career moms are saying they still get those calls like, what should I do? Where's the stuff for the laundry? You know, those daily consultations from the home office, from the home staff.
Working women are stressed. A lot. A new Gallup report reveals that nearly 50% of working women feel stressed the majority of the day, compared to just 40% of men. One big reason? Women juggle more personal and family responsibilities at work. About 17% of women handle these tasks daily, compared to just 11% of men. And for many working moms, caregiving duties often mean putting career advancements on hold, delaying promotions, and declining opportunities. Gallup's research, which was conducted over 18 months with 20,000 workers, shows that workplace stress is at an all-time high for women, even in spite of corporate efforts to promote wellness. Now, on the other hand, the study found that when women feel supported in balancing work and personal commitments, they're more engaged and less likely to job hunt. So, what needs to be done to build workplaces that truly support balance?
Girl, I've been there. I can tell you a story. I remember calling my husband saying, he's like, well, what do I just make sure it's just something green on the plate, make sure there's, and then he's like, what? So like chop up a pickle? Oh, Lord Jesus. No, like make a salad, sir.
Right.
Green bean, right? So, but as our daughter got older and I decided to go to work and do the business, it became more prudent for us, for him to stay home, because I was making what CEOs make, right?
Right.
So it became more prudent for him to stay home. And you know what? He did it better.
He learned, right?
He learned all the years from what I did when it was finally his turn. All the mistakes I made, all the calamities he calling couldn't get right.
Yeah.
He nailed it. So I think whatever works is what works, but I think we have to stop being so sensitive as a society and saying, well, when you say that, it discounts me. Only thing that can discount you is you.
Right.
If you feel what you're doing is important and necessary, it is. And if you feel like it isn't, somebody else's words will offend you.
Right. And you know, Society does discount the work of the stay-at-home mom.
Agreed.
So I hear what you're saying in the sense that it has to, your esteem about what you're doing has to come from internally, from yourself, because society, if you wait on society to appreciate motherhood, period, career and stay-at-home mom and everything in between, you're going to be waiting until you're
You're
6 feet under.
going to be waiting for a lot. And we have to ask ourselves, why do I need society to say that? Why do I
Mhm.
need that validation? Why isn't it enough that my children are well educated? Why isn't it enough that my home is well taken care of? Why isn't it enough that my children aren't child beasts roaming the streets? Right? Why isn't that enough for me? And I think for me it's because I never looked at it as a job. Right? Because you can be
Mm.
fired from a job, and a job is something you have to do. My child
Mhm.
is something I chose to do. Being a
Mm.
mom was a choice for me. And it was why God created me. I love being a CEO. I love making a lot of money, but I don't love anything like I love being a mommy. I love being a mommy. So to me, it wasn't a job. And I was the mom who made all of her food before organic was really like a thing. Right, my daughter's 21. So that tells you how
Uh-huh.
long ago this
Oh.
was. Okay. She's
Mhm.
in her
Mhm.
third year of college. So
Mhm.
I breastfed her until
Mhm.
she was over a year. And I brought,
Fantastic, by the way. Can we put a pin there? That's now you talk about hard work. Talk about breastfeeding for a year.
and listen, and literally over a year, but I promise you, her brain development was so great because of that. Like, yes, she was chubby, but I tell you what, she was just a wonderful, good learner, never got sick, right? She just all of these things, and I made all of her food from scratch. I peeled and boiled the carrots. I mashed them myself with hot water, no preservatives. My kid didn't eat preservative sugar. I made homemade butter. I made homemade bread. So I know that it's not easy, but it was not a job. It was
Mhm.
my pleasure to
Mhm.
make sure my daughter had an experience in life that only a mama who loves you this much can give
Oh, that's so beautiful. Oh, you gave me chills
you.
saying that.
That's just how I
Oh,
saw it.
that's beautiful.
That's how it made me feel. This is supposed to come from a mama who loves you. This is what
Mhm.
life looks like. So to me, I'm offended when people say, oh, it's like work, huh? No, sweetie, people can't wait to get off work. I love being with my child every day. Does that mean I didn't miss adult conversation? No, I did.
Well, what do you say for those moms? Because we come in varieties. What do you say for those moms who may be listening to you and saying, "Wow, I don't really feel that way. I don't have that type of connection with motherhood."
Right. And that's a tricky thing, right? Because everyone's connection isn't going to be the same. And I think it might go back to what we mentioned earlier. When you nurse your child for that long, there is a bond. And there
Mhm.
is this extra sense because I know there's just a bond just from having a baby, right? And giving birth.
Right.
But there is just this extra connection of I am providing life and the way you bond with that baby that brings that out in you, right? But just
Yeah.
because you might not naturally have that feeling doesn't mean you aren't doing a fantastic, amazing job as a mom. Doesn't mean you're not killing it as a mom. And it
Mhm.
doesn't mean that because I didn't experience postpartum. A lot of women say they did. It was nothing I experienced, but then I talked to my mom, it was nothing she went through. So I understand completely, though, the women that do. And it doesn't mean you're not this stellar,
Right.
outstanding super mom, right? It means you're
Right.
even better because you have to fight through something that
See,
some of us didn't have to, right?
so you don't have to have the butterflies, is what you're saying. You don't
I
have to
don't
have the
think
butterflies about motherhood to be an outstanding mother.
you don't because guess what? The fact that you're showing up to do it is outstanding. That
Mhm.
is what it is, right? I've wanted to be a mom since I can remember. Like my mom would say when I was a little girl, I would say, I just want to be a mommy and a teacher. I am those two things.
Wow.
I want to be a mommy and I want to be a teacher. It's all I've ever wanted.
So is motherhood a desire or calling? Oh, I'm asking you deep
No,
questions.
listen, because
Sorry.
I don't believe the two are mutually exclusive.
Oh,
Right? I
explain
believe
that.
it can be one and the same, and they can be exclusive, right? Right?
Hmm.
Because for me, it was a desire, but I also feel like God created me to be a mom. I tell all my even my students, their parents I have kids here today. His parents like, can they just be with you today, Miss Nicole? They don't have school, but they miss you. Yeah, they can come. Because God put that mother thing inside of me, right? So for that, it's a calling. But I was born with the desire. I wanted 10 children, right? But my body and God chose something else. But right. So, but there are people who I think God just created them and they're just great mothers. And it wasn't necessarily something that they desired deep down, but they just got this thing down pat. Right. And that's because that's how God created them. God created them with this.
That is so true.
I've seen women who are not physically mothers be amazing mothers. And they don't have children of their own, but I have seen them be amazing mothers. To me, that is your calling. God called you to that. And I think sometimes there is just a desire. You just have girls who just want to be moms one day. Yes. And that was just me. My daughter's the opposite. She's like, I don't know. My career is so important. I don't know that I want to do that. Right. I was never like that. When I was a little girl, I was like, I can't wait to be a mommy. Like, I just remember that desire, but I don't think they're mutually exclusive. Right. So I think I got a double dose, which is why I love being a mama so much.
That's wonderful. So your calling and your desire align together.
Yes.
That's really beautiful. Do. And motherhood has been evolving significantly over the years. I mean, I don't know. I feel like it has. Being an outsider observing all the changes, because the role of women in society has evolved. And so as a result of that, motherhood itself has evolved as well. And to that point, the stay-at-home mom role has also been changing, because now you have people who are not they're bridging this hybrid life where they are, granted, we went through the pandemic and people are now more likely to be working remotely.
Yes.
And so you have that group that never quite left the home and went back to the office, despite the corporate pull to get people back in the office. And so you still have moms who are juggling this incredible task of working from home, but don't really have support at home while they're working at home. So, and then you have also the influencer. So the growth of the influencer phase, where you have moms who are like, I'm at home. I can maybe become an influencer in this space and utilize my motherhood as a source of income. Now, I have a twofold question. Are we now putting additional pressure on women to fulfill this role of, and maybe we're putting the pressure on ourselves to be moms at home without a support system and still trying to either be an influencer, meaning starting our own entrepreneurial ventures or side hustle, or we're literally hired by someone, we're working from home, but we don't have a support system. Should families be looking into a support system even when moms are working from home? Are we underestimating the ability to balance the needs of children and the needs of your job and trying to do the two? I think it's insane to try to juggle both.
It's a lot. It is a lot. And I think too, this is kind of one of those unintended consequences I was speaking to you about earlier, because like you were saying, the roles of women are changing, and definitely the role of motherhood is changing, right? And we see this evolving exactly like you're saying. But I think part of that is because, right, we had women who wanted to go out and be out there, but one of the unintended consequences is you kind of stifled the role for many years of women who want to stay home, because now finances dictate that you probably do need two incomes if you want to live a certain level, and especially in certain states like California, right? You might need that 2-income household if your husband doesn't make this extreme amount of money, right? For you guys to live above the poverty line, right? But then
that's real talk.
Right. And it puts pressure, because you really do have this, like you were saying, this desire to stay at home and be there with and for your children. But then you're forced to make a choice, which is where you see these influencers coming in. Well, if I can do this and generate money, I can still live out my dream of being here. But I also think there's another kind of a pressure from the influencers, because that stay-at-home mom whose dad is like, why aren't you like her? Right? She's thin, she's dressed as sexy, she's picture perfect, she's cooking everything from scratch. The kids aren't yelling, right? You don't know how she's edited that tape down. You know what on God green earth happened. You know what I'm saying before, right? But now there's just this expectation that you should be sexy when I'm here. You should be perfect while you're cooking. The home should be perfectly clean, right? And so I think that there is this added pressure because some husbands are like, you got to at least work part-time, or you have to do this, or we have to live without this, right? And I think that lands on the mom, right? And now we're having to say, yeah, maybe I do need to work a little from home, or, you know, get, like you were saying, a side hustle. And I do think to some degree, we can bring that on ourselves, but I also think society and sometimes your partner puts a little bit of that pressure on women as a whole.
So maybe it's just me, but I resented the heck out of my husband, and I'll tell you why. So it wasn't because I became a stay-at-home mother and he kept living and never really acknowledged that my life changed. I started to build resentment and anger, and I was just like, oh, why am I feeling like this, right? Like, there are no problems, and it seemed like I was the problem. Because I was. But honestly, what I realized is I needed him to understand my life changed, but also just say it did. If you never acknowledge and put language to it, things never change. And that was the one thing that I needed to let go of, the resentment. And now we're in a great place. So if you're feeling like how I was feeling and you're having issues, send this to your partner so they can just understand what you need isn't always actions. What you need is them to verbalize and even just affirm your very feelings.
Oh, especially some men, it takes them a while to realize that being a stay-at-home mom doesn't mean that I'm lazy. It doesn't mean that I'm at home sleeping or napping or doing nothing, that I'm literally at home making sure that our child has the best childhood experience they possibly can, making sure that your dinner will be piping hot when you get here. Like, it didn't happen by osmosis. Right? It didn't snap twice and the food was ready. Right. And it's just, but they're expecting all of these things. And I think to some degree, we have to build in expectation in our own home. And because I had to teach my husband that. I had to teach him that. I had to say, so here's the thing, right? I don't have a crew. I don't have a staff, and we don't have a butler. So this home is lived in. So you might have to walk in and kick a Lego to the left if you want dinner hot. Right. So like, and I think you have to set realistic expectations for your home, for your life, because I thought my daughter's not going to sit in this house all day. I'm not going to sit in this house all day. She needs to go outside. She needs to understand what a leaf is, what a car is, what wind is. Right. We're not going to be in this house all day, every day. And if I leave and there are Legos on the floor, so be it.
Right.
People live here. This is not a model home. People here, you know, and once I accepted that,
people actually live here.
People live here, honey. I don't know what to tell you.
Oh my goodness, you are so right. But yeah, you know, you do have those model homes out there. Can't do anything in those homes.
You can't.
But for those of us who actually live in our homes.
Right. And I think you have to say that's awesome, whatever's going, because I didn't contend this 21 years ago. I wasn't contending with the internet. I wasn't contending with Patty Perfect in her size 0 cooking and breastfeeding and the home is immaculate, right? I wasn't contending against that. And a lot of these mothers are. A lot of these mothers, their husbands are like, well, why don't you wear that? Why can't you make that? Why can't, very right? True. And I would, personally, I'm too much of a mess for that, because I'd be like, well, how come you don't make as much as the man from Coca-Cola? I want you to make the same amount as the guy. Right. So I would have something smart to say. So it's probably good that I wasn't in that position. But I feel so sorry for the women who have that pressure. Even one of my nieces said to me, Auntie, you should start making Instagram posts, because there's a lady who does all bread and jelly. And I was like, Auntie Coco makes all that stuff. And she said, I was even thinking, you know what? Maybe my husband would like to see me. And I thought, no, girl, you work. You're a new mommy. You're this. You good if he want to see something, he can figure it out and he can make some video.
Right, right. That too. Right, right. There is this growth of people living in an alternate universe, and we see it from the fantasies about childbirth all the way through about the fantasies about motherhood from both perspectives, from the partner's perspective and from the actual mom's perspective. And I think we do need to kind of always snap ourselves out of that fantasy to realize, I will tell you, I do posts. And what you see takes a lot of editing. From lighting to sound to time to music to create the fantasy.
Yes.
And it's very intentional. Create the message, create whatever action plan you want the person to do. So you're very intentional about the things that you do to drive behavior through those who are viewing it. So it's important to us to be conscientious of that and realize that, yeah, what I am seeing is very made up, and some of it is quite entertaining. You see these people who are very consistent with their presentation, and she is chopping the potatoes, and she is chopping and preparing the asparagus, and she's creating and making bread. You're like, wow.
I can't believe that Lindsay Lou is 7 months old now, which means that we're prepping baby food. So here are some basic things that I prep to make day-to-day life a little easier. I started by warming up some milk and using leftover yogurt to start my new batch of homemade yogurt. I poured that back into my milk and let that sit for 7 hours in a new place while I made some simple blueberry compote to go on top of it. I had leftover beef bones in the freezer, so I roasted those for about 30 minutes, let them cool while I started chopping up some carrot, celery, and onion. I added all of that alongside my beef bones to a pot, filled that with some filtered water, and simmered that on the stove for about 7 to 8 hours. I usually prep one puree a week, so this week it was sweet potato and butternut squash. Last week it was pea and mint. I roasted my vegetables, let them cool, and then added them to my food processor alongside some thyme and some colostrum, blended that until it was smooth, and then set that aside. All of my babies were allergic to eggs when they were younger, so I made these chia and lemon zest pancakes, which they always enjoy, so I made some buttermilk, mixed that with my dry ingredients, and made a small batch of pancakes. At this point, my bone broth was done, so I strained it, saving all the vegetables. I also grabbed my yogurt, gave that a good mix, and then it was time to put everything in jars. I started with my yogurt and blueberries, bone broth puree, also the carrot from the bone broth, and our prep was done.
This is interesting.
And from a person who makes bread, and I've never used a bread maker in my life, my kitchen don't stay patty perfect when I make bread. I have powder all on my nose, flour.
Right.
Like that's not the reality
It's
of making
not.
bread. I made all of my daughter's jelly. She still won't eat store-bought jelly to this day.
Uh-huh.
I have to make her homemade jelly, right? Your house doesn't stay like that. Like someone is selling you a bill of goods. And so I think it's almost like anything else, not just with motherhood, or you have to say to yourself, whatever I tell parents all the time, whatever happens in your home is normal for you, because parents always bring their children to me for brain therapy or whatever it is. And they're like, I just want them to be normal. No, listen, fall back. Whatever is happening in your home, that's normal for you. That's where you start. That's your baseline. That's your baseline. Your baseline is not this kid who started reading at 2, and your right? This is your baseline.
Mm-hmm.
And if you accept that and start from there, all the hoopla falls down and life becomes so much easier.
That part.
It's a smooth ride because you stand in your lane.
Right.
And I've learned that in motherhood, right? You may not be as gung-ho about motherhood as I am. It doesn't make you a bad mom. Right? I'm not going to pretend like I keep my house clean. It's 6 bedrooms, 5 bathrooms. Honey, listen, somewhere it's clean. Get there. Go there.
But to your point about that also, there's now this school of thought that perhaps we need to start investing, especially with the epidemic of mental health challenges, of women who, as you mentioned earlier, are challenged with postpartum depression or perinatal depression and anxiety symptoms, or perhaps may have underlying other types of psychiatric illnesses. and motherhood can be taxing for them. And so there's a school of thought about us kind of changing the way we view what we decide to invest in. And so part of that investment, as you mentioned, also maybe investing in a butler, maybe investing, perhaps I don't have to live in a mansion to have a actual someone who comes in and is a nanny for my kids a few times per week, so I get a little bit of a break even as a stay-at-home mom. That I perhaps have someone who helps me with the cleaning of the home, or someone who helps me with management of the home, right?
I am a stay-at-home mom who also has a nanny, and this is how my days look like when she's here. On this particular day, she was working from 7 a.m. to 2 p.m., so I was able to sleep in until 8 a.m. since she woke up with the kids, made them breakfast, and took care of all of their morning routine. I, on the other hand, got to wake up a little later, take care of my morning routine, make my bed, and just get my day started. By the time I made it downstairs, she had already taken the kids to the park for the morning, so I just focused on making my morning coffee, coming upstairs, and just relaxing for a little bit before getting ready and heading out to I had a 10 a.m. class, so I got to see the kids a little bit before heading out for my class. I am currently deciding between Solidcore and Cloud Pilates, but sometimes I feel like Solidcore just kicks my behind on a whole new level, because by the time I got home, phew Lord, I took about 30 minutes to get ready, do a quick makeup look, because today is a mommy and me date with my girlies, so the nanny took care of getting them dressed so that I can get myself ready, and it was time to head out for a quick little brunch. The girlies and I had the absolute most amazing time at brunch. We left the house at around 11 and didn't even get back until right at 2 when the nanny had to leave for the day.
And that itself is not necessarily that much easier, because you still have to manage people as you hire people.
Yes.
It then becomes your own organization. Your home becomes an organization in that sense. So you still have to kind of still manage individuals. But some people are saying that perhaps that may be an option or a great postpartum gift, just to plug that in there,
Right.
to help women get through, especially that postpartum period, which is so critical.
And it's a tricky period.
Very
tricky.
What do you think about moms, staying-at-home moms hiring help?
Okay, so for me, I remember my husband saying, and I thought no, right? But for me, for who I am, I was like, that's the reason I'm here. So nobody else has to be, right? But everyone's not in that place. And what I saw happening, which as Katie got a little older, this really worked for me. You meet people in your mommy and me groups. I was in every mommy and me group. We were at the library group, right? When she was little, we would go and listen to them read stories at the library, and parents would take turns. And you meet really good moms just like you. And some of them, if you don't have a lot of money, or maybe you don't have that extra, they would rotate days, and they would say, oh, we all kind of realize whomever is going through this postpartum, and the moms in the group would provide the dinners, the lunches, clean the house, and to help her get through those things. Because as mommies, we notice that. Don't worry, we'll pick you up. We'll take her to mommy and me today. Why don't you rest? Why don't you rest? Mommy and me is 2 hours. Why don't you just take a nap? And you do. That's why it's important to get into groups and to forge bonds with people that you know and that you trust and that can be trusted, because oftentimes you will find help in those areas, and people who understand, who won't judge, who won't say, why, just get up and do it, right? You can't. If she could get up and do it, I promise you she would. Right? No mom wants to be down when they know they should be up. If they're down, they need to be down. Right? And that's okay. We have to start normalizing saying, you might not have all the energy in the world. You may not want to do it today, even though you know you need to. And we have to stop saying you're a bad mom because of that. Right? And you just suck, or why don't you just do it? Like, suck it up. I felt sad, but you don't know what she's going through. You were able to suck it up. Yay. We're all proud of you. You're glad you did. But if she can't, we're all moms. We can step in, because not everyone has the extra finances to bring someone in, or at least someone you trust, or just have to pay and hope that
part too, someone you trust, which nowadays, woo,
and that list shrinks.
I don't trust none of y'all out there.
Listen, if literally my daughter went to my mother and my sister and my brother, that was it. Like, I was just like, because you just, as a mom, you can't undo something, right? If something happens, you can't undo it. They can't unsee something. They can't unexperience something, and they can't unhear something. So I needed her to only be in environments in which I knew, well, I was safe when I was in those environments. So I have no reason to believe
Right.
you would not be safe, right? And so I think it's harder these days because so many people have access to your children in so many ways. Even
Yep.
when you're home,
Yes.
people have access to our children, right?
Right.
So I think it's those trusted people. Oftentimes, it's family, a mother-in-law, a
Yeah.
sister-in-law, and we have to express it because sometimes we won't say anything because we don't want them to think we're a bad mom,
Right. Right. So
or we don't want them
removing
to
the
think we're
judgment.
lazy. You're a stay-at-home mom, man. You need me to babysit. Like, right? We feel super judged in that moment.
Because people do judge.
You feel super
They
judged
do
in that
judge.
moment. And you're like, I'm staying home, but dude, I'm doing a million things. And I also like breaks, but I don't get to clock out. There's no 10-minute break. There's no
Yeah.
15-minute. There's no lunch break until your baby takes a nap, but that's really cleanup time. And that's really start dinner time, right? And my mom say sleep when she sleeps, right? Which sounds good in theory.
Tell you how many moms are like, that never happens.
No, it doesn't. I was getting a master's degree when Kate was a baby as well. And so it's like I would be with her all day and I would take night classes and I would come home at night and my mom would bring her to the university so I could nurse her in between classes.
Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'd be with her all day and I would sleep literally for 2 hours because I want to stay up with her. And then I'd set an alarm and I'd wake up at 1:30 in the morning so I could do all my homework.
Wow.
And start the day all over again.
Like I said, moms are simply superhero.
Stellar.
Whether you are one member of the Avenger teams of motherhood or another,
yes,
altogether, Avengers have different roles and different tasks, and they look very different. There's a whole diversity of them, but guess what? They're all superheroes, and that's exactly what we're saying.
All of them.
All moms are superheroes, and I love that you mentioned getting that village.
Yes, that's huge.
That trustworthy village. That is huge. Listen, Nicole. Listen, I hope y'all are taking notes. Y'all picking up what she's putting down because she's putting down several pearls. Okay, Nicole, this was amazing. I really loved a lot of things that you're saying. Like, I'm taking notes. I mean, that whole description of motherhood, calling versus desire. I love that. I love that. And if you had to say anything else to encourage a mom that's out there who may not be feeling the most confident about her motherhood. Perhaps she's getting pressured from her mom. That happens. Perhaps she's getting pressure from internally and her own expectations, or pressure from feeling the pressure from society. How would you encourage that mom?
I would say to that mom, sometimes we have to learn to block out the noise, right? And look within because you are this baby's mother. You love this baby. Trust your love. You don't have to know what to do. Your intention will be right because you love your child, right? So sometimes you have to block out the noise and trust yourself. Even if you're in a situation where you haven't learned to trust yourself because people have made you feel and like you can't do it or you're losing your confidence, you have to say to yourself, the bottom line is, I love my baby.
Mm-hmm.
And because I love this baby, I trust the choices I'm going to make. And just because you trust it, even if you get it wrong, right? You won't always get it right because you're doing it for the right reasons. And you always get it right because you're a child, right? But even when you get it wrong, you have to say, you know what? That's okay. One perfect person, Jesus, not me. One perfect person. I get to be wrong and I reserve the right to change my mind. Even if you said I want to stay at home and I don't want to work, you reserve the right to change your mind. If you say I want to work and I don't want to stay at home, you reserve the right to change your mind. You got it wrong, you need help, you reserve the right to change your mind. You're still worth it. You're still worthy. You got it wrong, you're sad, you don't want to get out of bed, you couldn't change the baby's diaper on time, you're still worthy. You're still worthy. You're still a good mother.
I love it. I love it.
You're all by yourself, you're still worthy.
And I'm a tag on to what Nicole just said, because if God knew you were going to make those mistakes and he was okay with you, he still chose you to be that child's mother. Okay.
Bless you. Children are inheritance of the Lord. It's a blessing.
Absolutely. And he blessed you with that child and he trusts you with that child. He trusts you to make the same mistakes, but he trusts that he would be there with you through those mistakes.
Right. And that's the only way we learn. I tell my students this every day. If you don't make a mistake, I don't get to do my job, and I love my job. Right? Because I want you to learn. So every time you make a mistake as a mom in any capacity, you just learn something.
Right.
All of us benefit from learning. Maybe you learned what not to do. That's okay.
And that's okay too.
You learned.
Right.
And there's no downside to learning. There is no downside to learning. So mistakes can build you up. You shake it off, you step on it, you stand on top of it, and you're higher than you were. You're higher
keep on
than
pushing.
you were.
I told y'all we were bringing the head brain on the couch. Oh my gosh, that was amazing. I think motherhood is so beautiful. I love to see people kind of evolve in their own motherhood and flourish in motherhood. And even those who don't feel like they're flourishing, they are flourishing. And as an outsider looking in, you see that beauty of motherhood. And so thank you for sharing about your motherhood also and your motherhood journey. That was amazing. So Nicole, if people wanted to tap in more to your head brain stuff and all the things that you share with this world, tap into the brain zone. Share with us, by the way, remind us what the brain zone is for those moms who are out there. They may want to tap into your services.
Awesome. We would love that. So the Brain Zone actually provides several services. So we do tutoring K through 12 in every single core subject, but we also specialize in brain training through our Natural Potential program for children who may have auditory processing issues or visual processing or any type of brain trauma. And we even have senior cognitive programs that have just excelled, that really we are contracted with hospitals to do preventative for dementia and Alzheimer's. So we do a lot of brain training through our my oldest client is 93. And we really have increased her digit span from 2 to 7. So it is very an amazing program.
That's
so we
amazing.
cover a gambit of things. It is vastly interesting. So if you're interested, you can go to www.thebrainzone.net and get all of our information there. And so we would love to speak with you about how we can help with your children or your parents. So we are
the whole family.
8 to 80.
Pull up with the whole family. Okay.
Anybody
from the toddler to grandma. We're just all pulling up to the brain zone.
My youngest client is 3. My oldest client is 93.
See, look at that. Look at that. See, I said what I said. Okay.
Boom.
And I am Dr. T, the hand behind the handle of Healthy Bump Club, right here on YouTube and also on Fanbase because we support our own. And you can find us, as always, on HealthyBump.club on Instagram. We thank you guys for watching. We hope we've dropped enough pearls out here for you to pick up. We thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you guys when? The next episode. This is Dr. T, just a friendly reminder. Don't forget to comment, like, and share. And go ahead, why not? Click that subscribe button. Help us to get to the next 1,000 subscribers. We thank you guys for supporting.